The presentation of American Playhouse is made possible by the nation's public television stations, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the National Endowment for the Arts, and by the Chubb Group of insurance companies, for over 100 years providing business and personal insurance worldwide through independent agents and brokers. American Playhouse, your contributions have kept this fine series on the air, and television reviewers have consistently called it the best thing to happen to television drama. This past season, it won the 2 most coveted Emmy Awards for Concealed Enemies.
I am not.
The amazing true story of the Hiss Chambers spy scandal, starring Edward Herman as Alger Hiss, president of the Carnegie Endowment.
The House Committee on Un-American Activities held a press conference earlier today, at which it was stated that a Mr. Whittaker Chambers, one of the senior editors of Time magazine,
is going to appear before the committee tomorrow, and he's going to name names, Mr. Hiss. He's going to name people who are or have been members of the Communist Party.
John Harkins as Whittaker Chambers.
Mr. Hiss represents the concealed enemy against which we are all fighting. And I am fighting.
And Peter Rickert as Congressman Richard Nixon.
Whit is a communist, is an espionage agent.
One more question.
Next, on American Playhouse, the Emmy Award-winning Concealed Enemies. American Playhouse is now television's most prestigious showcase for American writers, actors, and directors. Your support has made it possible for this series to grow to the point where television reviewers call it the best thing to happen to television drama. But it isn't enough to say you enjoy the programming. We need your financial support. This effort to bring the best of American drama into your home must be complemented by your individual commitment to excellence. Please support your local PBS station. Be a contributing member.
Presentation of American Playhouse in Iowa is made possible in part by a grant from the Iowa Humanities Board and the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Live from the MET, a new production by Franco Zeffirelli of Puccini's Tosca. Hildegard Behrens is the tempestuous Tosca, Placido Domingo the idealistic Cavaradossi, Cornell MacNeil the pitiless Scarpia, and Italo Taio the comic sacristan. Giuseppe Sinopoli conducts Puccini's gripping opera, Tosca, live from the MET, here on PBS.
Join us Wednesday night at 7. Practice makes perfect for any performer, regardless of the type of performance. This week on Take One, we'll watch Hawkeye coach George Raveling and U of I Symphony director James Dixon lead their players to a grand finale. We'll also visit some animated cartoonists and glimpse into the criminal mind. Join us for Take One, Thursday night at 8 o'clock.
This letter which started your wife's torment, you are quite certain that it was from the United States?
This week, Sherlock Holmes unravels the riddle of the dancing men.
It is a considerable challenge. I would like to start by interviewing the servants. And I beg you, nothing, absolutely nothing, is to be removed.
The Case of the Dancing Men, this week on Mystery.
Join us Thursday night at 9.
Hello, I'm Dean Borg. Every year I host an evening of festival and ask viewers to show their appreciation for the programming on Iowa Public Television by joining friends. Well, this year was a big success, and I felt gratified that many of you Iowa Press and other public affairs program viewers called the night I was a host. And I want to say thank you to all of you and remind you to be sure and mail your check now as soon as possible. Now, if you didn't have an opportunity to call during festival, well, there's still time to become a member of Friends of Iowa Public Television and receive the monthly program guide called Advance. Simply mail your check for $20 or more to Friends, Post Office Box 1758, Des Moines. The zip code is 50306. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments regarding our programs. Please send them to the Director of Programming, Iowa Public Television, Box 1758, Des Moines 50306. You're watching Iowa Public Television.
Welcome to American Interests. I'm Peter Crow. This week we're on Capitol Hill, where we will soon be meeting with one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party, Senator Gary Hart of Colorado. During the 1984 presidential primaries, Senator Hart's views struck a responsive chord among many voters. In a moment, we'll meet Gary Hart and take a closer look at his proposals for redirecting American foreign and defense policy, here on American Interests.
American Interests is made possible by grants from IBM, Exxon, Avis Rent-A-Car System, and Pfizer Inc. Additional funding is provided by the Star Foundation and the Landegger Program in International Business Diplomacy.
Our guest is Senator Gary Hart of Colorado. Senator Hart first achieved national attention when he devised the strategy that won George McGovern the Democratic presidential nomination in 1972. 12 years later, in 1984, Gary Hart waged another determined but unsuccessful campaign, this time to place himself at the head of the Democratic ticket. He was portrayed as the candidate of new ideas, and in the field of foreign policy, his ideas proved to be both novel and controversial, drawing praise and criticism from both ends of the political spectrum. Gary Hart was defeated by Walter Mondale at the Democratic Convention, after which he returned here to Capitol Hill, where the Democratic leadership is redefining its foreign policy agenda. It's a good time to catch up with Senator Hart because 1988 is only 3 years away, and rumors have it that Senator Hart may soon be off and running again. Senator Hart, recently you proposed that the United States unilaterally stop testing some weapon systems in advance of the beginning of the strategic arms negotiations. Why? What do you think that would achieve?
Mr. Crow, I'm afraid what we've gotten ourselves into is a situation in the arms race where technology and science is racing faster than diplomacy and politics. One of the reasons why it took 6.5 years to negotiate the SALT II Treaty, which, as you know, was not ratified, was because technological developments and evolution of weapon systems happened faster than the negotiators could figure out solutions or formulas to control. The only quick arms control treaty, and the most successful treaty, was the Limited Test Ban Treaty, 1963. President Kennedy, at that time, as you'll recall, led by introducing a United States moratorium. He invited the Soviets to join us, a moratorium on testing of nuclear weapons and explosives in the atmosphere. The Soviets came along very quickly, and within a space of 3 or no more than 4 months, we had a treaty with the Soviets. Very quickly, it has by and large survived 20 years, and I think that's what it's going to take for START or SALT III or whatever.
But that was at a time when the balance of power was considerably different than it is today. We were so far ahead in so many areas. The Soviets were having so many problems, not only in their technology, but in their diplomacy, that it was very much to their advantage to agree to a moratorium. How would they see it in their advantage today to agree to some moratoria that the United States laid on the negotiating table in advance?
Well, ironically, the Soviets have been the ones who most favor the moratorium approach. They've, for example, for some time favored a comprehensive moratorium on testing. We have not favored it because we're not sure we could verify it down below a certain very low range or yield. They have also proposed other moratoria, for example, on anti-satellite weapons. We have opposed that because
they're ahead there.
We feel they're ahead. It depends on what ahead means, but that's the argument used, that we can't do that because they're ahead. So it's really been the Soviets who've been ahead of us on the moratorium approach. I think the administration ought to seriously think about whether it isn't in our interest, not to do them a favor, but to do ourselves a favor, in reaching an agreement to take this approach. Now, if the Soviets don't follow, we don't need to do it. I'm not for an unlimited unilateral moratorium. It is all conditioned on the Soviets following.
Did you get any indication on your recent trip to the Soviet Union that they would respond positively to this kind of upfront initiative by the United States?
Yes and no. I surfaced the idea first in a rather long meeting with Foreign Minister Gromyko, and there was no preparation for it. It was really something that I just brought into the conversation at the time. As you well know, the Soviets do not respond well to sort of unpredictable circumstances. They tend to respond negatively. I got a lot of rhetoric from Mr. Gromyko along the lines that they had tried this approach and we had rejected it. But curiously enough, within a 2-day period of time, Vladimir Zagladin, who is the leading foreign policy expert in the Central Committee of the party, came back to me, initiated a meeting with me, and the whole idea was to pursue what exactly I had in mind. So there was some interest, yes.
You went to the Soviet Union in part to gauge their intentions, particularly in the arms control field. Did you come away with any sense of what those intentions might be, how seriously they are interested in negotiating, whether they are in a spirit of compromise at this moment?
I certainly think they feel it's in their interest to reach some comprehensive controls on nuclear weapons and reductions. They will not negotiate to do us any favors, and we shouldn't expect that. We should not also negotiate out of weakness or out of a sense that we are doing them any favors as well. Arms control either is in our interest or it isn't. If it's not in our interest, we shouldn't do it. And if we can't independently verify Soviet compliance, we should.